Hey everybody, it's Joel from Vspot Vapes. I'm here today to talk to you about the KangerTech Subtank. I think this device has gotten some initial bad press that's maybe fairly or unfairly deserved. So today we're going to just talk about some of its virtues and some of its vices as well, and what we think about it and what our experience has been so far. It's been out for, I don't know, about a month now, I'd say. And I've had some time to use it, but for purposes of this demonstration, we're going to go ahead and just crack open a new one, show you what you get in the box, talk about all the features, and what it really provides. The biggest thing about this, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a hybrid tank. So there are two options in here. You can either use their new OCC coils, which are the organic cotton coils. And those are dual coils, I believe, that come in 0.5 ohms and 1.2 ohms. Or if you're feeling adventurous and you want to make this thing really sing, it has an RBA, so a rebuildable atomizer. And we'll show you all the parts and what it takes to put it together out of the box. There is a little bit of assembly for that swap out. But, you know, I've had some good experiences with this, and I've had some bad experiences, so I want to share both of those with you and give you an idea of what you can expect if you pick one of these up. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this open real quick. The first thing I think you'll notice when we get this guy open is the size of it. This is actually a 25 millimeter diameter on this tank. So it's pretty big. You know, most devices you get are 22 millimeter, and so this is just a little bit big, and it's also very tall. The packaging is extremely nice, I'll give them that. And we'll go ahead and get this open. So this actually slides out of the box like that, and it gives you a little warning card about putting your juice in for the first time with the OCC coils. Comes with a user manual, certificate of authenticity, and then this is the tank itself. So holding it up next to, say, the Atlantis, which has become kind of the new standard. Everybody loved the Nautilus previously, and I think the Atlantis is now kind of taking the stage when it comes to clearamizers that have sub-ohm coils in them. So KangerTech, I think, had the Aspire Atlantis in its sights as its prime competitor, but I think they did themselves a disservice with making this thing so big. And they actually have two more models of this that are available now. They have the Nano and the Mini, not the Nanny. And those are considerably smaller than this. I honestly don't know what the size of those are, because I just want to focus the discussion today for what do you get with the first generation original Subtank. So we'll go ahead and pop this guy out of the box. Construction's pretty nice. There's some knurling here on the bottom to disassemble, so you can unscrew this whole assembly, and you'll see that pre-packaged it comes with their organic cotton coil. It's the 0.5 ohm, I believe. Yep, that's a 0.5 ohm that they've got on here. Okay, so here we are, and we're gonna first set this up to use the RBA instead of the OCC. The OCC is pretty much open, prime, fill the tank and use it. And the OCC coils aren't bad. They're actually really great. I think they provide the nice usual airy KangerTech vapor. If you've ever used like an AeroTank V2 or AeroTank Mini, it's your typical AeroTank draw, except the vapor production is really good with both of those. And like I said, I didn't notice much of a difference. But for the RBA, you get a totally different experience with that. So to start things off here, we're going to disassemble this top cap. They do put thread lock on these screws, which I was a little surprised about. I always thought you didn't want that on your builds, that you can actually increase the rate of corrosion using that. So I'm going to just take these screws out, and we'll take off the top for the OCC. There we go. Get that out of there. Dump the screw. we'll just set this off to the side. And so then we'll use this one, the shorter, line up the holes. And now I get to demonstrate my lack of fine motor skills here. May have the shakes a little bit if you're zoomed close in. Might have been some drinking happening last night. I may be a little dehydrated today.
Got the dog barking in the background.
That's good. All right, so that screws back on. So this piece is almost ready to go. I'm just going to go ahead and slide the glass back in there and set that off to the side. And now for the build itself, I'm actually going to go ahead and screw this piece into the deck first, just because it's a little bit meatier to hold on to with my big ogre fingers here. So I'm not so challenged at trying to hold things together. And we're going to open up this cotton, which is, again, surprisingly very nice cotton. And I'm going to go ahead and try to peel out a thin sheet. And I like using like an inside piece. So I'm going to pull that out. And then I've got it a little thick on this side, I think, for this purpose. So I'm just going to thin that down a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off a section here. And then I'm actually going to roll this up on this end, I think. And then we'll wick that through. And I always just try to make this easy on myself. Again, I don't have real good fine motor skills here, so this is always a bit of a challenge for me, I'm not going to lie. But we'll go ahead and get that at least pulled out. And I'm not going to cut those yet. I'm going to cut another piece and repeat the process for the other coil. And I'm using about 1/3 of a slice of this sheet. I like to keep it reasonably free moving in there. If you pack this cotton in too tight into the coils, it actually won't draw the vapor in, and you'll end up getting some dry hits rather easily out of it. Or not draw the vapor, but draw the e-juice into the cotton. So we'll go ahead and pull that in. Ooh, and this may be too much. Oops. Thread that in, maybe. And I know I have these tweezers here, which I should go ahead and just make use of those. There we go. And again, I'm going to trim this piece down because I find that easier after I've rolled it to get it to reopen and expand here, maybe. If I can.
What kind of cotton are you using there?
This is the KangerTech.
Oh, it is a supplied cotton.
Yeah, this is what came with it. If you want to talk cotton, we are getting ready to bring in Samurai cotton, which is amazing stuff.
Yes.
And they do give you directions for all this too here. So, you know, if you want to fast forward through this and just get to the part where we're using it, that's a-okay by me. But I thought we'd just go ahead and give a little demonstration here. And then I'm going to cut this down to length because right now, as it is in this bow tie stage, it's a little bit too bulky. If we tried to cram all of that cotton, it is going to have to fit inside this ring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of eyeball it and maybe say, okay, so I'm going to go a little bit down. I do it about halfway through the deck and then just trim it straight across. And I may need to retrim that, fine tune it before I actually put the cap on there. And then the same thing on this side. I'm just going to repeat the process here. Whoops. And actually, let's make that even. There we go. And I probably could have done this before trying to put the, I guess that's the chimney piece here, back on, but whatever. Sometimes I do things the hard way. But I don't think we're going to have any adverse fallout. screw that guy back on. And then I'm gonna just work my cotton back, kind of sticking out maybe, and just try to get this all organized and discreet here so we can see what we're working with. There we go. So then we'll tuck the cotton in, kind of fill that space on either side of the coils. And now we're ready to put some juice on there to wick that. So I've got with me today, I'm going to go ahead and use this RYD2 from Vapor. I really enjoy this. It's a tobacco flavor that I don't think tastes like tobacco. If you have this available locally, I highly recommend picking it up. I'm just going to put a few drops on there, let that wick, and we may need to pause to give it a moment. Okay, so we've got this back on there. I've given it a few minutes here to wick in, and you can see this is actually registering at 0.41 ohms, and then instead of the advertised 0.5 ohms. So it's running a little lower. I've found that sometimes these things actually wobble a little bit back and forth there right after build, and I think it has something to do with the spring-loaded pin in the bottom, because it does generally tend to float back to 0.5 ohms. And we'll just give it a little quick fire there to see that it is in fact wicking. And I might just go ahead and give it another little drop on that side and on that side. And then we'll put this top cap back on. Maybe. Again, I'm not the most dexterous with these types of things. So that is mostly assembled at this point. All that's left is really to fill up the tank and reassemble the whole thing. So I'm going to remove this from my mod, which is my SX Mini that I absolutely love. And we'll set that aside. And what I'm going to do is fill this up. When you fill this up for the RBA, you don't want to get it too close to the top of this hole, or else you will just end up with a mess that you'll be cleaning up for pretty much the rest of the life of your build. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this up to just below the top, or what will be the bottom of that air hole. So I'm just going to leave it like that so that I don't risk making a big huge mess. Turn this upside down and then rethread the base into the tank frame. And as a proper gentleman should, I've got my air holes all the way open because I like a nice airy draw, and this definitely excels at that. And I'm just going to give it a little prime. I prime it by putting my fingers over the holes, giving it a little draw, and just pulling, and you can see that the air bubbles come out from either side where the cotton is wicked at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the atomizer. The operating range on this, you know, this build is pretty hot. So what I usually do is actually start at a low wattage for this. And for this device, I think 20 watts is reasonably low. But we're going to go ahead and give this sucker a quick vape. I haven't let it sit really a long time, but I think it'll be okay to take a draw. You ready?
Let's do it.
So let's see what we get with our first quick build here. Man, this tank is one of the most satisfying vapes that I've ever had, but it's also one of the most finicky vapes I've ever had. I recommend starting out at the low wattage just because I've burnt these coils out more times than I can count. And like I said, restaging those twin coils on there is a royal pain in the butt. In terms of a satisfying vape, I mean, it's nice and thick. but it's super airy, and it's different than what you would get out of a dripper, but the experience I think is just as satisfying, and the flavor on this is just absolutely amazing. I personally think the flavor out of the Subtank with the RBA is far and away better than the Atlantis, but you have to live with all of these other little quirks of the tank to get a really satisfactory experience out of it. And we'll go ahead, and I've actually got it running on the soft mode on this device as well. And if anybody out there is familiar with the SX Mini, it's got 3 battery modes: soft, standard, and powerful. And the difference between those is that on the soft, it doesn't go directly to the set wattage. So it actually starts lower than the 20 watts and slowly brings it up, which is nice because you can tell if you're at too high of a setting. And then standard is just that, where if it's set at 20 watts, it fires at 20 watts immediately. And then powerful, I would not use with this RBA, because what this does is actually provides an initial higher wattage than what's displayed to try to bring the coils up to temperature. That's great for a dripping atomizer, but for a tank like this that tends to run hot, I think you're more inclined to just burn out your coils and have to replace them right away. And the capacity on this tank also, by the way, is 4.2 milliliters with the RBA build. You get 6 milliliters with the OCC. So you are giving up some of the capacity with this build, but it is super satisfying. It's a totally different animal. So I'm gonna set that back to my soft mode, and we're gonna slowly ramp up the wattage here. Well, maybe I am. And I'll go to 25 watts. I mean, it's just, this is honestly, I think, one of the most satisfying builds, but there are a lot of quirks to it. Okay, and for comparison purposes here, we've actually got we've got another SX Mini with another Subtank. This one is running the OCC at 0.5 ohms. So if you want to see comparison, the OCC, I don't run it at as high a wattage. I'm actually going to dial this down to the same 25 watts for this OCC, just to give you an apples to apples comparison. Maybe. There we go. And this OCC coil obviously has had some time, so you're getting really great vapor production compared to a fresh build. I think with all KangerTech devices, when you let them sit for 24 hours, after that initial 24 hours is when they really start to sing. And you know, right out of the box, this thing is great, but you give it 24 hours to let the coils just kind of get, I don't know what's happening, but kind of set and primed. Man, these are awesome. You'll notice that if you have these two setups side by side, that the vapor on this seems a little bit more airy, not quite as warm. It seems like you get a cooler vape out of it, and you get a warmer vape with this. And heat is definitely a problem. Like I said, I've burned out these coils on more occasions than I can count by not watching where my juice level is. I let it drain all the way down, just not paying attention, working throughout the day, and then take a hit off of it, and boom, my resistance jumps up because one of the coils is burned out. And you can certainly build a single coil on there at about 1 ohm, and I think end up with just as satisfying as an experience. There seems to be this fascination with low resistance coils, and I just don't think it's really necessary. This is the 0.5 ohm OCC coil, but even with the 1.2 ohm running at lower wattages, you get the same level of vapor production out of it. So let me do another hit here just for comparison with the RBA. Man, that's so good. I mean, the flavor just pops out of that thing like no other tank that I've used. And this is good too.
That snap, crackle, pop of the KangerTech, you know, pre-built coil, but
Absolutely, it sounds just like any other AeroTank, like an AeroTank V2 or a Mini. The way you get your Rice Krispie sounds out of that, the snap, crackle, and pop. And these excel at vapor production and flavor. It's not as wet a vape as you get out of the Atlantis, so you don't feel like you've just taken a sip out of the bottle. But the experience, hands down, I love this experience when it's good. But there are so many finicky things about it that I think can be remedied by doing your own build. And certainly the Nano and the Mini, or the hybrid of those two, the Nanny, if you like, may fix some of the issues with the size that everybody has, because this does look a little ridiculous on especially the SX Mini, which is a small device. But if you're not too concerned about the size aspect, this can be a very, very great atomizer. I love and hate this thing at the same time. I just want it to be perfect all the time, but it does take work. But for on the go, it's fantastic. It brings me the satisfaction of having a dripper without having the mess of a dripper on the go, which I dislike. So I think that about wraps it up for what I have to say about this device. Josh, any parting thoughts that I should include here?
No, man. I think you covered it.
All right. So as always, I'm Joel with Vspot Vapes. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Vspot Joel. You can follow us us entirely on Vspot Vapes with at Vspot Vapes. Check us out on Facebook. I don't know what the URL is because I suck at that sort of thing. But Josh, I'm sure, will give me a little graphic at the bottom to fix that.
We'll cover it. We got you covered.
Awesome. I knew I could count on you. So, yeah, I do recommend this device if you can live with some of those quirks and inconsistencies. It is, when it's on, it's on. This thing is great. But when it goes off the rails, it's a little bit of work to fix. So, leave it up to you. I think we are going to also start carrying the Nanos and the Minis as well. So if you're looking for something that is a little bit smaller and easier to fit with your mods, that might give you a little bit more flexibility there. But again, I think the dual coil setup is just a little too aggressive, and would highly recommend checking out some other builds that you can find on the interwebs. So overall, if I had to give it a star rating, I'd give it like a 4 out of 5, because when it's good, it's that good, despite those quibbles. I think other people might give it like a 3. Some people might give it a 2 because they can't deal with the hassle. But, for me, this thing is amazing when it's working well. And I've never had the same problems with the OCC coils as I had with the RBA. This always gives me a consistent, good vape that's satisfying, but it's not quite as good as the RBA. So you do have a lot of flexibility. The hybrid design is pretty smart on their part. It's just the size and the cantankerousness, if that's even a word, of the setup that I think is probably going to aggravate some people. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Pretty good, man.
All right.
Cool.
Vape on. Vape on.